Tony D and Little Joan with a Screenwriter's Rant on Candyland, a movie about a religious woman who finds herself in a uh, world of sex work. And I don't know, it paints the religious guys as the baddies, and I think the sex workers as the good guys. Smash like and subscribe. Thanks for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books, links in the description. Comedy Horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys. Books 1 through 10 available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. So the premise is one day a local religious cult comes to the truck stop and tries to preach to the lot lizards, otherwise known as the prostitutes who work the lot. And amongst them is a young woman who then escapes the cult and goes to the sex workers for help. And then she ends up becoming one of them. So that seems kind of wrong. And then she experiences a lot of weirdos, and I assume some amount of sex, possible assault. And then one of the Baldwin brothers, I think, is in it. Looks like him. Looks like, is it Stephen Baldwin, I guess? Or the other one. Adam? Is it Stephen or Adam? I don't know. We'll see the credits in a minute. But it kind of paints the sex workers as the good guys. Which, I don't know. That seems a little extreme. I'm not sure who's killing who in this. Maybe it's the sex workers. Maybe it's a religious guy who sees nothing but sin everywhere. We do have some credits here. Let me see if I can find them. Oh, forgot to turn the sound off. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, see, it gets a little bloody. There's Candyland. A film by John Swab. Okay, here we go. Oh, boy. Written and directed by John Swab. Doing all the heavy lifting. He also produced it. Let's see. Is this the cast? Yeah, starring Olivia Lucacardi, Sam Quintarin, Eden Brolin? Or Brolin? I can't tell. He's really hard to read. Virginia Rand, Owen Campbell, with William Baldwin. A William? There's a William? Okay, with William Baldwin, who's the only name in this, I think. The only person I recognize. So this is like a B-movie level. I'm not sure who the villain is. I assume it's some sort of terrible killer, but it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell from the trailer. It's kind of an interesting angle, this idea. Well, let me read you the synopsis, because that's the only reason I kind of saw it, but I kind of didn't. A seemingly naive and devout woman finds her way in the underground world of truck stop sex workers, aka lot lizards. It seems a little over the top to be true. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes they do a movie like this and it's very grounded in reality, and you're peering into a world that's mostly real. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like B-movie level of slasher. It just feels like they're using that in order to build they call it a thriller horror, but feels like a slasher. I don't know what. I guess it's a maniac killing. I guess possibly this priest guy who's very creepy. See, it says a raucous slasher in one of the raucous slasher, backseat mafia, whoever that is. I mean, I don't know who's doing the killing here. So, like here, one of the girls has the knife. So maybe it's the women. Maybe it's her. A really interesting twist you won't quite see coming, Film Hounds. I don't know. I could see the religious girl snapping and going nuts after engaging in sex she didn't quite understand. I mean, here she is knocking with the cross and it's all bloody. It's a weird setup, though, because it feels like the religious guys are so cartoony and over the top. Like, I get it. Religious guys exist. Some of them are pretty annoying. But most of them are just like anybody else. So they're not. You have to play characters at the height of their intelligence, or you have this problem. Now, I'm more sensitive to it than most people because all I do is look at trailers and movies all day and write stories. So my bar is much higher than the average moviegoer, and especially for some kind of fare like this. But it feels like the opening of this with her religious cult is like way too cartoony. Like, it's literally a guy getting out of a van and preaching to the lot lizards and her, and the lot lizards laughing at him. Like, I don't think it would go down like that. Not in real life. In real life, it would be, hey, listen, I mean, because you'd have a guy who actually wanted to convert some people, You'd have a guy who would come to the lot lizards and say, listen, you guys have a rough life, and, why not look for a way out of it? Don't you want a way out of it? And on the other end of that is the lot lizards are mostly exploited women, drug addicts. So most of them won't, you're not going to be able to corner them in a conversation because they happen to be sitting outside lounging around in the sun. They're too busy trying to score drugs or make some more money. So, like, the entire setup is so unlikely, right? Because when you're talking about women who are prostituting themselves at truck stops, they don't have time to sit outside and together and smoke, maybe by themselves, and if you had 3 or 4 of them working together, they could probably come up with a better situation than having to do what they do for a living. Unless, of course, they have a pimp, which a lot of them do, which keep them addicted to drugs or beat them or intimidate them and push them back out there. So, and genuinely, I think church people would want, I think anybody would want people stuck in prostitution to try to help people get out of it. It's not a glamorous lifestyle, especially at a truck stop. You could argue that, I don't know, maybe some of the higher end girls are having a great time, but not if you're doing that at a truck stop. Come on. So the entire premise kind of flies in the face of reality. It feels like a very cartoony premise. But then you have this twist where it's like, oh, it's going to be a big twist. Well, but you've already started with a very non-reality based premise. So what's the twist? You could have Martians. It could turn out one of them's a Martian eating everybody's brain. Still wouldn't be that big of a twist because the lack of reality kind of tees you up for that. That's why it needs to be characters at the height of their intelligence. So you could have a situation where you acknowledge all the realities of the world. This is a tough life. None of these women want to be in it. They're stuck in it for whatever reason. And then a church-going guy comes to talk to them, gives them food, and says, hey, I'm here to help. He's been there before, and he also happens to be part of a cult, and they're looking for recruits, and this is because cults do target people who are down on their luck. Now, the other problem I have is one of the women in the cult leaves to end up being a lot lizard. I mean, what would you rather do? Would you rather be in a religious cult, or would you rather have sex with strange people for a living? I think the answer is the first one for 99% of the people. If you have any idea what both those situations are like, yeah, being in a cult's no picnic, depending on the cult, but doing that at a truck stop, that's pretty gross. It's pretty gross. Not the cleanest, safest thing in the world. At least in the cult, you don't have to do that. or you might have to do something like that, but certainly not as often at worst. So you've got two things that, in my view, are working against the concept. Again, I think you could make it work. If you set it up realistically, you'd have to set it up that the cult was so awful, this woman had to escape. And that maybe the women in the lot, I mean, the lot lizards who help her don't intend for her to become like them, but she kind of falls into it. In the trailer, the girls tell her, well, we have a rule. If you want to live here, you have to work. That seems pretty harsh, especially coming from the people who know what that life is like. You're telling me they would convert her? I think their instinct would be the opposite. I think their instinct would be like, honey, you have to get out of here. You don't want to do this. I think they would go through great lengths not to try to keep her from doing this. I think if you approached it from the other way, that the woman said, no, 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 I have to pull my weight. It makes her a stronger character, because she's not doing it because the girls talked her into it. She's doing it because I have to pull my weight, even if she still snaps and it turns out she's the murderer. Now I'll address the title, Candyland. It's I get what they're trying to do. It's like you pick a happy title, but this is a horrible situation. I guess it feels like Candyland is the wrong word. Like Candyland should have been like a drug-related movie like that. So I'm not quite sure why they picked Candyland, a movie about either prostitutes murdering people or people murdering prostitutes. I'm not sure which, and then the whole religious aspect. And then you have a priest who's really creepy and his teeth fall out because he's got fake teeth and he's breaking his vows by being with a prostitute. Maybe he's the pimp. I don't know. You got people being murdered in the motel. There's a lot of elements here that aren't coming together for me. So it feels like a B movie level of a lot of elements that, if you just pick one of those strange elements, you can kind of make them work easier and concentrate maybe on the characters more and how they interact and make them just cool enough that they have cool lines that they say. You can make a movie that's about very little. It's just a straight up drama about people living in, I don't know, in and around a hotel. And you can make it fairly interesting if you just make them cool characters and have interesting things to say and perspectives. You can make it work, and then you have to come to some conclusion, but it doesn't have to be a psychopathic murderer killing prostitutes. It can be anything, really. It can be something very, very small and still be very engaging. So it feels like, and I hate to throw shade on a guy who's probably an indie movie. It feels very much like this isn't polished enough. It's not. It's just kind of like, oh, we got these cool elements. And I'm not knocking the elements. They're kind of interesting. But I don't think it's, it feels like, I'd read a lot of comics back in the day, and you'd read a lot of Image in the 90s, and a lot of the Image stuff felt like, oh, yeah, this is like Spider-Man. This is like the Hulk and Wolverine. This is like, this superhero and that superhero mashed together. And a lot of the Image comics were like that. They were very derivative of other things. This feels very derivative of other B movies. You've got all these elements sort of like thrown together. It's not poorly executed. Seems like it's well made. Sounds good. The cinematography's fine. Even the acting looks okay, although I think the religious guys are a little over the top for the tone he's going for. But I just think, it just doesn't quite hit it. It could work. Movies like this, they work either better as a comedy. If you're gonna be unrealistic, be a comedy, and then you could be as big as you want. But if you're not gonna do that, then you have to make the characters play at the height of their intelligence. Anyhow, would I see this? Probably not. I don't know. I mean, it does have some interesting elements. Maybe. If I had to pay for it, that would be a tough call. I don't think I'd make it through the whole movie, though. I think I would eventually just bail or start zooming through it. Maybe if it ends up on Netflix, I'll check it out, but I wouldn't go to the theater for it. It's just, it looks a little unpolished. First act, the cult comes and tries to convert the lot lizards. It doesn't work. The woman sees these women and, I don't know, I guess envies them and their freedom, and says she's been stuck in her cult forever. She eventually escapes and hides out with them because those are the only people she knows outside her cult, I guess, or stumbles upon. The cult is looking for her but can't find her or don't care, or don't think to check in with the lot lizards. Never dreamed she would end up there. I certainly wouldn't if I were them. So maybe that part is good. She stays with them for a while, and then they're like, well, you got to start pulling your weight here, and they push her into prostituting herself, which again just feels so wrong on so many different levels. If they're the characters I'm rooting for, it feels gross that they would do that to her, that they would degrade her because they know. Anyhow, so she starts prostituting herself, and either she snaps and starts murdering people, or she's prostituting herself at the exact wrong time when there is a killer on the loose who is murdering people, murdering Johns. So I think it's her, because there is a scene where she seems to be walking covered in blood, and she's holding this knife. Yeah, I think it has to be her. She's murdering the Johns. And she's disposing of their bodies somehow. Here she is knocking on the door with blood. Maybe she kills the guys in the cult. Maybe she kills them too. Maybe she's just she was just pushed too far and now she's the murderer. So she just kills Johns one by one, and then the end of the movie is the prostitutes figure it out. And I don't know. I guess they wouldn't turn her in, although they might, because that's pretty psychotic, and that is their customer base. And then she gets what's coming to her, where she dies, or the prostitutes say thank you and help her escape to another state, or blame it on somebody else, or it's somebody completely different, and then eventually the prostitutes kill him, or she does. She kills him and saves the day. Maybe that scene where she's walking bloody, it's her at the end of the movie after she saved the day and killed the slasher. And then the prostitutes clean her up, and the only way, here's a good twist, the only way she can avoid going to prison is to go back into the cult, because that way the police will never have suspected her being deeply religious. So they never find out that she was a prostitute for a short time. She's forced to go back into the cult in order to make sure no one ever figures out that she murdered, a bunch of Johns. Okay. So I did find a loophole to make this movie work. That could work. If that's the case, John Swab, I would be very excited to see this movie. So I'm a bit on the fence now. I've talked myself into it a little bit. So would I see the movie now? I would give it a chance then. It's coming out in 2023. I assume in February, where a lot of movies like this will be dumped. I don't think this is going to hit the theater though. I think this will probably go direct to VOD. If it hit a streamer that was free, I would check it out at least to see the ending. So Candyland, coming early next year, I assume a horror thriller about truck stops and lot lizards. And that's it for me, Tony D and Little Joan. Check us out on Odysee, Bitchute, and Rumble for our more base takes. I've got some book tour dates that got moved around. Various things are being juggled because I screwed up. Apparently I was supposed to do this thing on November 17th, and I thought it was December 17th, so I completely missed it. I apologize to anybody who came out to the Mechanical Brewery looking for me that night. I hope no one did. I thought I was going a month later. I just figured that out today. Got the email, hey, you weren't there. So we're looking to reschedule on the 22nd or 29th. It's looking like the 29th. I have that written down in December. The next actual event is, let me see if I can find this, the podcast. Tomorrow, I'm going to be a special guest on Horror Me Thursdays, episode 4. I'm going to talk about the Pineys, and we're also going to talk about Donnie Darko, which I haven't seen in a while. If I can, I'm going to try to rewatch it, but probably just end up refamiliarizing myself with the movie. And I don't know. Donnie Darko, I'm a bit, it had some interesting things, but whatever. All right, that's it for me. We'll see you